Hi, welcome to Conversations. I'm Judith Leblein. I'm really pleased today to have with me Blaise Batko. Blaise is an artist known around the world, but comes from South River, New Jersey. Welcome, Blaise.
Good to be here, Judith.
Blaise, as you travel around Central Jersey, people get to see your work in very large scale, but you've been an artist for some time now. When did you begin your craft?
Oh, over 20 years ago, and I started with much smaller pieces, a very humble beginning.
Mm-hmm. Now, you always wanted to be an artist?
I wanted to be an architect when I was small, and I hated school, so that wasn't in the cards, and I found my way to art.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're a product of the South River school system.
Yes, I am.
And was it unusual to have an artist in South River?
Well, an artist that didn't play football, yeah.
Well, South River is known as
a football town.
A football town,
Sure.
And here you were, an artist and interested in art from a very young age. And what, if anything, inspired you to stick to it?
Well, it was about the only thing I was good at, and it kind of wouldn't let me out. It was just, it kept me in it, and it was where I felt a little bit of success, and I had a comfort level that I didn't have in anything else, so I just kind of, you know, stuck with it.
And why marble? Why stone? Why granite?
That came by accident. I was taking a sculpture class in art school and not really wanting to be a sculptor at all. I wanted to be a painter. And I found out when I went to art school I was a pretty bad painter. I took the sculpture class, we started out in clay, and it just wasn't working. The professor got sick, his replacement came in, we started out with a piece of stone. And the first piece I made came out exactly the way it was supposed to, and I just was married to that medium.
Now, as I understand it from other artists, it's very difficult to make a living as an artist. And that's why they always say the struggling artist sale, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you started first with tabletop pieces.
Sure.
What were some of the pieces like?
Well, I started out with a sweet series, popsicles and Oreo cookies and lifesavers and fun stuff.
And this was when, in the 80s?
In the 80s, yeah. I started in the early 80s and wrapped up that series pretty much all the way through. For about 10 years I was doing that.
And although these popsicles and lifesavers were a fun theme, they wound up in the boardrooms of some very important places.
Yeah, pretty neat. Pretty neat. I met a lot of CEOs of companies, and it was funny because when you're in your 20s, I thought it was just normal. You have a show at a corporation and you get to meet the CEO.
You got there naturally and you got there quickly.
Yeah, lucky.
Yes.
Lucky.
Now, when did you start to think that you wanted to do things in a grander scale?
Well, that started with a 25-foot popsicle I made.
A popsicle?
A popsicle. And it was the only piece I made that was fiberglass, and fiberglass is a terrible medium to work in. It's very itchy and it smells. But I saw the importance of being seen, being noticed, getting television coverage, newspaper coverage, so I thought, well, you got to go big. Big makes news. So I made the 25-foot popsicle and got a lot of exposure.
Now, where did that popsicle wind up being?
In Christiana Memorial Hospital in Stanton, Delaware. And along the way, it went from Bloomfield, New Jersey, down to Washington, D.C. It was featured at the Russell Senate Office Building for National Ice Cream Week.
I would have loved to see that go by me on a tractor trailer.
They had it on, well, actually, Beacon's van lines, they took it to Washington free of charge, and they brought it out of a refrigerator truck. So they rolled it out, and the smoke was coming out because it was a hot August day, and it was just really neat.
So as I understand it, your work was seen by people that are in rather high places, and then there was the Challenger disaster.
Yeah.
And that disaster opened up a whole new world for you.
Well, it opened up the memorials. That tragic, you know, sometimes it takes something very bad to have good things happen out of it, and that was a good thing that happened in my life. The space shuttle sculpture, it got me noticed on a different level. It was a national piece.
And where is that piece now?
At the Kennedy Space Center.
Well, that is something else.
It is.
That really is something else. So recently you had an honor. You went back home to South River and you had a very large honor. And what was that?
I was inducted into the South River High School Wall of Fame.
That is very neat.
With Drew Pearson and Joe Theismann and all the big football players.
And there you are, the artist, the sculptor.
Yep.
And you've become quite a celebrity in your own hometown. I happened to be at that event. Can you share with us what you shared with some of the students that were present?
Well, I told them, I wanted them to know how hard high school was for me, it was an awful experience. You know, I wasn't a popular guy, I didn't date cheerleaders, I didn't play football, I certainly didn't get good grades, and I wanted them to know that even if they're not peaking at that point in life, life's a long haul, And you just have to be patient and wait to find yourself, and just stick with what you love, and things will work out.
Now, you really, in the world of art, it usually takes a very long time where you need to be dead before your work becomes famous.
Everybody says that.
Well, and it's true. You have to cut off a body part or something to become famous.
Oh, no.
And so you started quite young, and you
Yes.
were in galleries all around the world, and you were selling your pieces
Yeah.
at quite a big, high price point. And then there was a bit of a lull, and then along came these sculptures. And now they're all over Central Jersey. How does that feel for you?
It feels awesome to see my work and the type of scale it's in public places. The money, of course, is important. You have to make a living, but it's priceless to see your name on a piece that's going to outlast you by hundreds and hundreds of years. And in a small way, you kind of make your mark, because so few people get that in their life. They'll go to work every day and nobody says thank you, or nobody pats them on the back, and I've been very fortunate. I've had so many good people in my life.
And to display it in such public force.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Now, the first monument is the beautiful flag that sits right outside of the East Brunswick Library and Civic Building, and many people pass it each and every day, and I often see people sitting there in quiet reflection. Tell us about that beautiful flag.
Well, Judith, that flag is about the most special thing in my life. It's changed everything for me. That job came about. An old friend of mine, and he was a printer in South River. He did brochures for me and business cards, and out of the clear blue one day he called up, his name's Phil Richmond, and said, "Hey, I'm on this committee for the East Brunswick Veterans Memorial, and why don't you take a shot? What do you have to lose? Come up with a design." And I'll never forget those words, because it was just such a life-changing event. The only parameters were that it be a design that would be that would represent all veterans. And that's when I came up with the flag, because I thought the American flag is a unifying symbol and it's timeless. And I'm just so proud of that.
The beautiful thing about the flag monument that's in Civic Center Plaza here in the park by the library in East Brunswick is that from the front and the back, that flag is equally beautiful. And it really looks and appears as if it's moving, and it's just absolutely beautiful. But it's actually separate panels.
Yeah, they're all separate pieces, and they're assembled on site. And it is a challenge for an artist to have the back look as good as the front, because you're always thinking in terms of how you're walking into it, and the back has to be equally as entertaining to the eye.
Speaking of challenges, working with large pieces of stone like that has to be difficult.
Yeah, you can't mess up. You mess up, it's a lot of money. And what you have to do is the old saying, measure twice and cut once. Well, you measure several times and cut once. You just don't make a mistake. It's all in the planning. By the time you get to the actual material, you know that project so well inside and out that a mistake is almost, it's very hard to do at that point.
Now, it's obvious that it's emotional for you. When the monument for veterans in East Brunswick was dedicated, what kinds of things happened afterwards? Did you meet people in visiting the monument, and was it emotional for them?
It was emotional for them, and as an artist, you're so caught up in the aesthetics of a piece, and I know at that point I wasn't prepared so much for how people were going to react to it. And when I saw how it touched people's hearts, especially veterans, when you'd see these big old guys that are tough and fight for their country, and there's tears in their eyes, because you see how powerful it is and how it reminds them of losing some of their buddies and the sacrifice they made, and maybe just how lucky they were to still be here.
It was a really moving experience for them as well, in a different sense.
Sure.
So we go off to Monroe and Millstone and South River, all places that there either are or will be monuments by Blaise Batko very soon. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. It's just like, when I wake up in the morning, I just double check my calendar and go through my
Make sure it's
scrapbook.
not a dream.
Yeah, make sure it's not a dream, because it really is like living a dream.
Now the flag reappears in Millstone, New Jersey,
it does.
but in a different form.
Yeah, well, the flag symbol in East Brunswick was so powerful. It reappeared in Millstone, but it was a special experience that inspired me there. My sister lost her husband about 6 years ago, and he was a veteran. And I remember at the grave ceremony, my sister was presented with the folded American flag, and it gave me goosebumps, and it was just it like burned into my memory. And when the opportunity to come up with a design for millstone presented itself, it was just simple. I was going to do the folded American flag in a blue pearl granite, and it worked out pretty good.
Now you do sketches and then you go to a scale model and then the real thing. At each phase, is it still a surprise to you?
Well, by the time I actually get into the granite, it's been done so many times, there's no surprise. It's just, you just follow the plan. The sketch is really when the most things happen, the creative part really flows, because you're just, when I design, it's just a bunch of little thumbnail sketches. I just don't even really think about what I'm doing. The pen just goes, and the mind just, if you think too hard about it, it doesn't just come out of you. And if you have to be so deliberate about it, it just doesn't seem to work as well.
So the two flags are two monuments that are now up, and they're for veterans and dedicated and being enjoyed in a park-like atmosphere. Then along comes a very tragic day, September 11th, 2001. And you now have had both the honor and the experience of working in several communities with families of the victims of that tragic day. And that has got to be a very moving experience.
Nothing prepared me for that. As a matter of fact, we just had the 1-year anniversary of 9/11, and for me it was like going to 18 funerals. I got to know the parents, I got to know the widows, I got to know the kids, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the friends, and there were some people that just really touched me deeply. You know, I'm getting a little choked up now. It's like something that like you can't ignore. You just see such pain and suffering, and you hope in your work somehow you give them a little relief, because a lot of these people didn't have any remains. This was basically, I was making a grave for them. And at the ceremonies,
a place for them to visit and have
this is all they
reflection.
had. And you know, you'd see the people come up and they would touch the name of their loved one, and you know, your heart just broke for them, and it was just a matter of luck that you weren't in their shoes.
But what a great talent to be able to translate that for them into an inanimate piece. And I think that's really...
Well, it's very gratifying, because when something like this happens, you feel so helpless, because, you know, you see friends and neighbors hurting so badly, and, you know, at least with your abilities, you try to step up and, you know, do something that gives them some comfort.
Now, two monuments are up in the county and have been dedicated. The first, the beautiful one that's only a few steps away from your original American flag piece in East Brunswick. And just tell us about that piece and what some of the symbolism is in that piece.
Well, the one in East Brunswick is very simple. It's 2 black granite columns, each are 7 feet high, and they have the American flag sandblasted around each base. And the flag embraces the towers, it embraces the people whose names are on there, just to give hope, because in something so tragic, I think you can't remember people without some positive message that, you know, these people aren't alone. These people, you know, all of America feels the family's pain and feels the loss. And
your monuments by day are equally as beautiful by night. And I have been out there and seen people at all hours of the night and day stopping for a little bit of quiet reflection. And that has to really move you and give you a sense of real pride.
Sure, because, you know, you put all the time and you want to get it right. And the only way you know if you got it right is if people respond. And long after, you know, in between Veterans Days and the anniversary of 9/11, if people still come to visit, it's becoming an educational tool. It reminds people of tragedy, of sacrifice. It helps children understand these things, ask questions about these events.
A sense of history, and at the
history.
same time goes on forever.
Absolutely.
Which has to be really gratifying to the families. If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Blaise Batko. He's a sculptor, and in particular, here in East Brunswick, both the American Flag Monument and the World Trade Center September 11th Monument. Now, a second monument was dedicated recently in Monroe Township. And tell us a little bit about that monument and the symbolism there.
Okay, there I designed the walk to be shaped like the Pentagon. Inside the Pentagon, there are 2 black granite cubes, 3 feet square, 8 inches high, and those represent the towers that no longer exist. But dropping back from those are 3-foot wide walks in black cement, so they represent the shadows of the towers that once stood. Now in the background, there are 9 panels with the New York skyline carved out of the top of the panels. The 9 represents the 9th month, and the 11 are the shadows that go through the panels. The names of people who are lost are on the panels themselves, and
that's set in a park setting.
it's set in a park
Monroe
setting. Yeah, it is.
Township.
Yes.
And I understand there are several other monuments that you are now either in the design, model, or in the construction phases. Where would they be located?
South River, my hometown, which is very gratifying, and Old Bridge, and there's a couple of other towns that I'm in contact with right now.
So again, a terrible thing, a tragedy like September 11th, but what a great conduit for you to be able to help people through that grief and in memory of the people that we've lost. Although I know I can just see that it's been emotional for you as well. And how about in conversation with the victims' families once the monument is up? They've seen pictures, they've seen a scale model, but once it's up, what kind of reaction have you gotten?
Oh gosh, so many of them came over and they hugged me and they introduced me to their relatives, and it was just, as bad as it was the most gratifying projects I think I've ever been a part of. You know, I felt like I really did something for these people.
Now, what's next for you? What would you, if you could do a monument, if you could do a major piece of public art, where would you love it to be? Is Washington, D.C. next for you?
Yeah,
Is that a
if
dream?
I could have something in Washington, D.C., that would be the ultimate. That would be a career. That would be just, you know, it's like playing in the World Series, I think. Well, winning the World Series, actually.
Now, you mentioned Phil Richmond encouraging you at one point in your life to go up to the next level. Was there someone that inspired you younger in life?
Several people, actually. Every step of the way, I've been so fortunate in meeting people who just seem to open doors. I always had people that they would take an interest in my work and give me a helping hand, and they didn't have to do this. There was nothing for them to gain by it, but I was just, I always met people who were kind.
Now, if you couldn't be an artist and you needed or wanted to do something else, is there another dream job waiting for you?
Well, I don't know if it's waiting for me, but I'd love to be a professional golfer. I'd love that.
Oh, yeah. And have a monument done of you at the Masters.
Exactly. That Tiger who.
Now, it's difficult to make a living as an artist. What advice would you give to young people who are thinking about a career as an artist?
Oh boy, because you know, you just never know if it's going to work out, because talent alone isn't, I don't believe it's enough right now. It's so competitive that you need the whole package and you need some breaks along the way. But I would tell any young artist, don't give up, stick with it. You know, you'll be around people who will like try to look out for your interest by saying, oh, it's tough, why don't you do something else, do this as a hobby. But if it's what you love, don't look back, go for it, and you know, just never ever give up, because you just don't know. You know, sometimes things work out pretty good.
Who knew?
Who knew?
From small pieces of lifesavers and popsicles and whimsical sort of approach to art, to monuments, and now to monuments that will be there forever. That's quite a trip.
It's neat.
Yeah. And your parents?
Oh, they're so proud. I think
Finally!
they're happy because I moved out of the house and I have my own house now, and I think they were worried, you know, when you say to your parents you want to be an artist, it's like, oh boy, he's going to be living here forever.
Oh no.
Oh no.
And years of having large pieces of rock and marble and granite outside of their house.
Dust all over the house.
Well, you know, you often hear the jokes, my son the doctor, my son the lawyer, and my son the artist. Blaise, let me ask you in the little bit of time that we have left, artists that you've admired?
No artists inspire me. I know a lot of artists that they'll study famous people, and I try not to get into that trap, because I see so many artists that study famous people and all of a sudden they start to duplicate famous people, and you lose your own style in that process.
So even as a student in high school and in art school, you didn't go to the great museums, you don't travel across the country to see the work of others?
Well, I went to some museums because there were mandatory trips through school, and basically I could tell you what museums had good lunches to serve, but as far as the artwork,
you'd rather be golfing.
I'd rather be golfing. I mean, when I have a day off, I go to the golf course.
So then what is your muse? Where do you get the inspiration? Where do the thoughts come from?
Life experiences. I mean, there's no greater teacher than life. You know, good and bad, you experience different things as you go, as you get older, as you mature. It just comes from that. You draw upon the well.
How about about the business side of art? Do artists learn enough about the business side of selling art and promotion and marketing?
No, that's one thing I think school really fails the artist. They really don't prepare someone to get out into the real world, because I just it was the hardest thing for me to learn, and I was lucky because I was introduced to an extremely good artist, a professional, and he took me under his wing, and I learned about the business end of it. And you know, there's a lot of things that are hard to swallow because you want to create, you love what you do, but
You get caught up in that creative process, and you just want someone to want it.
And you, yeah, exactly, and you start to feel that, you know, you don't understand that the world has rules, and it's a business like anything else. And, you know, you have to market yourself. And, you know, when I go to the quarry and I say I need 60,000 pounds of granite, they don't care that I'm an artist. It's just like they bill me, the shipping company bills me. You know, it doesn't, the rules don't change for them.
Now, earlier in our conversation, I asked you if you had advice for kids, kids that were thinking about becoming artists. How about advice for the parents of budding artists? As I understand it, you were dismantling parts of your house and reassembling them and stacking things and knocking them down. And any parent would say, that's just a precocious kid, but that was a sculptor and a monument maker in the works.
Yeah, it was. What I would say to parents is support your child. I was lucky because I have parents that gave me unconditional support. When they knew what I wanted to pursue in life, it was just, you know, what school do you need to go to? How can we help you? And it wasn't like they had great wealth. It was, you know, they're working folk, and, you know, they did the best they could for me. And I would say just support your child, give them everything they need to succeed, and even research it a little bit, find out how you can help them.
And don't be disappointed if one medium doesn't work out. You started out wanting to be a painter.
You know, I think too many people start out and they give themselves one chance, and if it doesn't work out, they pack it in. I know so many talented people through school that gave themselves a 5-year plan. Now, if it takes 6 years, you just don't get it. So you just keep going. You just never give up. You don't look back. You don't kind of set up like a parachute where you can kind of like escape from the plan safely. It's like just never, ever give up.
So the young artist that climbed to the top of the 25-foot popsicle never would have known that huge monuments of granite would one day be right in his community.
No, there was no way to see that. And, you know, there were tough times every once in a while. And if I gave up back then, I would have never got to the point of doing these granite memorials all over the place. And, you know, how I would have been cheated in life. I just, you know, I just would have never fulfilled what I was meant to.
Does it worry you at all that things like public art and monuments that can stand the test of time will fall short of the necessary funding they need? Does that concern you, or do you think there'll always be support, private and corporate, for art?
I think there'll always be support, maybe not enough of support, but every once in a while you'll come across the right group of people that share the vision and want to do something the right way and not just chop it up into like a budget where it gets so watered down it loses the impact. And I've never completed a job for anybody where they said, our memorial is too nice. That's never happened.
Well, Blaise, when I first was told I was going to interview an artist, I expected an old gentleman with a beret and an ascot and a pipe, and you certainly have proven that that is not necessarily the profile of a sculptor. Do you find a lot of people are surprised when they meet you?
There's all kinds of stereotypes when it comes to being an artist, and I'm not any of them.
No, you aren't. Well, thank you so much, Blaise, for joining us. And your art is just absolutely beautiful, and I congratulate you on all those pieces. And it was an interesting conversation. Thanks so much for joining us, and there is nothing like a good conversation.